Hello, everybody, and welcome to Between the Bumps Professional Wrestling Podcast, the podcast where we go between the bumps in the ring to discuss match quality, storylines, wrestling news, and even make predictions in the world of professional wrestling and sports entertainment. I'm your host, Christian Marrero. Thank you for tuning in. All right, everybody. Thank you for tuning in to the very first episode of Between the Bumps Professional Wrestling Podcast. I'm your host, Christian Marrero, and we are here today on Tuesday with the Raw Review Show. Now, Raw was a very good show last night. I'm not gonna knock it. They did a lot of things very right, in my opinion. Sure, they had their ups and downs, as Simon Miller would say, but overall, I thought they did a really good job. One of the notes I have written down here, and it's the first thing I wanted to talk about, is that Raw took a play from AEW's playbook. And that is they put NXT talents in the crowd tonight. Finally, this needed to happen. We don't know when fans are going to be allowed back in arenas, so we need to create some kind of atmosphere. Because that silence that they had before was absolutely deafening. So having a crowd to react, even if it is the talents from NXT, really good stuff. I'm really glad that they did that. So let's jump into what happened in the show, you guys. Let's jump in and talk about Raw itself. There's a lot to get to, as you would expect with a 3-hour show. So let's just dive right in. The first segment, we had the Kevin Owens show to open up the show. And his guest was Asuka. And she comes out, and they do the whole Asuka banter, where Asuka is speaking in Japanese, and Kevin Owens is pretending to understand every single word she says. Or maybe he does. I don't know if he's pretending or not. I'm going to venture and say he does not understand every single word she is saying. But overall, it's always funny. It always gets a good laugh out of me. It gets a good chuckle. Asuka's so good at her delivery, and Kevin Owens is just so charismatic and just so easy to bounce off of. It worked really well. Anyways, she gets interrupted by Charlotte Flair, who then gets interrupted by Natalya, who then gets interrupted by Nia Jax. They all come out to build to the triple threat match that they're going to have later on in the night to determine the number one contender for Asuka's title. And this was a pretty by-the-books affair. I'm going to be dead honest with you. It was good. By no means was it bad, but it was very by-the-books. Charlotte Flair came out, started talking some trash to Asuka, saying that Asuka's never beaten her, and that every time she has faced Asuka, Asuka has lost. Asuka has come up short. She's the one who ended Asuka's undefeated streak. All of these things. Natalya then comes out, and she starts going on about how she is a veteran, about all of these things, about how she is clawing for an opportunity. Charlotte Flair calls her irrelevant. Very brutal. One funny thing that happened when Kevin Owens introduced Natalya, well, he didn't introduce her, but when Natalya makes her entrance, one funny thing was that on last week's Raw, Natalya completely destroyed the Kevin Owens set. Like, the Kevin Owens show set, she just threw the chairs out, threw the signs out. So when Natalya's music hit, Kevin Owens immediately just walks over to his signs and he just puts them out of the ring very gently. And he just tells Natalya, oh, well, since you destroyed my set last week, I just thought I'd get those out of the way for you. And she apologizes. It's whatever. Then Nia Jax comes out and says about how she's dominant. She's unlike any other competitor in the WWE's women's division. And that she's going to steamroll over Asuka at Backlash. Epic foreshadowing. Not really epic, but foreshadowing to say the least. It was a good segment. It was fine. It accomplished what it needed to accomplish. It set up the triple threat match that we will talk about later on. The first match of the night, and I think this was very good match placement, because you know, you want the most important matches to go on either first or last. And that's going to factor into the show later. But the first match was very well placed. It was Apollo Crews versus Andrade for the United States Championship. And Apollo had a small interview segment backstage talking about how he is going to now go out there and prove himself and beat Andrade for the title. And the match was really good. Just with the names of the two people in the match, Apollo Crews and Andrade, you could probably guess that the match quality itself was very good. They work very well together. Andrade is talented as hell. Apollo Crews is talented as hell. It was a very, very good match. What really stood out in the match, though, was this Angel Garza segment that they had mid-match. Because, you know, sometimes WWE, and not just WWE, but in professional wrestling, two people will be having a match. And then to progress a different storyline, we will show a talent backstage watching their match on a screen. So, that's normal, that's fine. What is not normal, and what got a real chuckle out of me, and what actually made the segment very fun in a really weird way, it was very awkward, but it was funny, was, I don't remember if it was Caleb Braxton, or if it was Charlie Caruso, but one of them walks up, I think it was Kayla. Kayla walks up to Angel Garza during the match, and he compares professional wrestling to, and I quote, making love to a beautiful woman. And then he goes in very descriptive detail about how professional wrestling can be compared to sex. It was funny. It got a laugh out of me. His whole Lothario gimmick, I think he pulls it off well. I think he walks a very fine line between, hey, I'm goofy, and hey, I really want to win and be competitive. And he's also that pretty boy, you know, it was funny. It was really funny. I liked it. I think it's good for the Angel Garza character to be doing some funny things like this, building up that charisma. Well, not really building it up so much as utilizing it, because he has a lot of charisma. So, anyways, we go from Angel Garza back to the match. And like I said, it was a pretty, not even a pretty, it was a very good match. Very good. They had a lot of cool spots. Apollo Crews wins the match and wins the U.S. title with a military press slam standing moonsault combination. Literally, he just lifts Andrade up above his head in a military press, slams him to the mat, and then he moonsaults on him from a standing position. It was really good. I think it was a cool ending to the match. I didn't expect it to end the match, and I think that's what made it so cool. It's like, I thought it was just going to be a transitional move, and then no, like, he won the match. So, it was cool. Apollo is your new United States champion. I think that's a good call. You know, Andrade's not going to suffer not having the belt, and Apollo might be able to gain something from it. So, I thought it was a good call. Apollo cut a promo after the match talking about how for the past 11 years he's been chasing this dream and he's had a bunch of doubters, a lot of people who said you could never do it, and now he has solidified some proof that, hey, I can do it, I did it, I'm a champion. Very impassioned. It was a good promo. We follow that segment with a Seth Rollins backstage promo, and he's addressing his attack on Rey Mysterio last week. If you did not view last week, after his match with Aleister Black and Rey Mysterio, he takes Rey Mysterio to the steel steps and pushes one of his eyes into the corner of the steps. And this was 2 weeks ago, actually. I'm sorry. Not last week, 2 weeks ago. So then, he goes on to talk about Rey Mysterio being a quote-unquote sacrifice, and says you're welcome to Rey. Like, you're welcome, I made you a sacrifice, I had to do this, pretty much more Messiah stuff. And then he goes on to introduce Austin Theory as his new disciple. I love this. I love this teaming, I love this pairing. I think that Austin Theory will fit with Seth Rollins and his vibe much better than he will fit with Zelina Vega and Andrade's vibe. Like, I get a vibe from Andrade of a very in-your-face, I'm gonna beat the crap out of you, and I'm gonna talk a bunch of trash while I'm doing it kind of heel. Whereas with Austin Theory, I really get the sense of a cold, cunning, no-nonsense, I'm here simply to show you I am better than you kind of heel. So, I think it's a great choice to have Austin Theory work with Seth Rollins. Then we follow that up with a Charlotte Flair backstage interview. And she's talking about how she is the standard for women's wrestling now. How she is the most prolific women's wrestler in WWE history. And it's true. It really is. Asuka interrupts her. And this is why I say Asuka is just delightful. Asuka is great. Everything that Asuka does is great. And I just love Asuka. I think she's awesome. So she comes in, dancing with her little belt, being all goofy like Asuka does. And she just starts going off in Japanese like she does. And so she's just going off on Charlotte, all this other stuff. And at one point, she said a really funny line, which I liked. She just holds her belt up to the camera very intentionally. And she goes, "Red is not your color." I thought it was a funny line. I thought it was a good way to end the segment. I thought the segment overall, once again, it did what it needed to do. It was never this thing of being the best interview segment. It was just to get a story over and to further promote that triple threat that we're going to have later on tonight. After this, the Iconics cut an in-ring promo. So first the Iconics come out. They cut to commercial. We don't know what they're going to do. We don't know if they're having a match. We don't know if they're going to do a promo. We presume they're doing a promo because the ring announcer did not announce their arrival. But the Iconics come to the ring. And Peyton Royce begins to apologize to Billie Kay for losing her cool and attacking Alexa Bliss. To the point of them getting disqualified. And Billie Kay cuts her off. I was like, no, you don't need to apologize. I need to apologize because I slapped you. And I'm sorry for that slap. I lost my cool. I don't want anyone to think there's any animosity between us. I especially don't want there to be animosity between us. Because everything we've done in this business, we've done together. And then they go on to say that they never lost the women's tag team titles. They were stripped of the women's tag team titles unfairly. That is when Alexa Bliss and Nikki Cross decide to interrupt. And Nikki comes out and cuts a very impassioned promo. It was like some of the best promo work Nikki has done ever. Like legitimately ever. She's a real good talker when you give her something like this. It was good because she comes out and she starts talking about the Iconics and she says, you know what? When y'all came to the United States, for those of you who do not know, the Iconics are from Australia. So she says, when you came to the United States, y'all came together. So from the beginning, y'all were each other's backbones. Y'all worked together. You were never alone. Y'all always had someone with you. You always had someone to have your back. When I came to the United States, Nikki Cross is Scottish. She says, when I came to the United States, I was alone, and everything I did on my own. I scratched, I clawed, and I busted ass to get to where I am today. And I did it by myself. I did it without friends. I did it without all of this until I met Alexa Bliss. And Alexa offered me Nikki Cross, the girl who bounces off the walls. She pretty much extended an olive branch to me. And she helps me when I'm bouncing off the walls, when I feel like I'm going crazy. She helps reel me in. And I think that I have taught Alexa Bliss something about friendship. It was a nice promo. And yes, the last line where she was like, and I think I've taught her something about friendship. It was a little cheesy. But the promo was so impassioned and like she delivered it in such a way, I believed it. It got me. It really made me feel... It made me feel exactly how it was intended to make me feel. It made me feel good. It made me want to get behind Alexa Bliss and Nikki Cross as the baby faces. And then the Iconics beat the crap out of Alexa Bliss and Nikki Cross. It was a really good beatdown. They brutally threw Alexa into the corner, into the ring post. It was a good beatdown. And then they do the classic heel thing. They pose with the titles, lay them on top of the battered bodies of their rivals. It was a good segment. It really was. I wasn't expecting it to be that good of a segment. And it makes me really happy because the women's tag team scene, if this is the segment we're going with and this is the feud we're going with, if they can keep pulling off segments like this, the women's tag team division is going to be in a very good place. And that makes me very happy. So after that Iconics and Bliss and Cross segment, we moved into a backstage segment with MVP and Lana. And literally this is exactly how it goes. I'm not even joking. I'm going to verbatim recreate this segment. Lana walks up to MVP. We need to talk. MVP is on his phone. He looks up from his phone. No, we don't. And then he walks away. Now this is just to set up two things. One, it is to set up the VIP lounge with Drew McIntyre, which is going to be the segment that follows this. And it is to continue furthering the storyline of the rift that is being torn between Lana and Bobby Lashley. It wasn't bad. It was short. It did what it needed to do. I can't really criticize it beyond that. But then we had the VIP lounge segment with Drew McIntyre. So MVP comes out. He does his classic heel shtick of, oh, he's the WWE champion, but I prefer to call him soon to be former WWE champion. And he introduces Drew. Drew comes out, and the first thing he does is he trashes the set. Like, he comes, he flips the couches, he flips the table, and he tells MVP, where's Bobby? Where is he? Bring him out here, let's go. MVP says, no contract, no contact. Bobby Lashley will not be fighting or attacking you until Backlash. We do not fight for free. And then he goes on to tell a story about how a few months ago, he extended an olive branch to Drew to try to help him further his career. And Drew McIntyre repaid him by delivering a Claymore kick right to his face. And that ever since that day, MVP has made it his goal, because he knew Drew McIntyre would become WWE champion. He made it his goal so that whenever that happened, he would personally have a hand in him losing the title. So then he goes on to say that it took Lashley 13 years to get to where he is today. And that Lashley has worked his ass off. Drew then pretty much says, boo-hoo, it took me 19 years just to get an opportunity at the main event. And he also reminds MVP, like, hey, I beat Brock Lesnar in 5 minutes. I don't think Bobby Lashley's going to do that. And then he goes on to explain why he rejected MVP in the first place. He says, I don't need anyone thinking or talking for me, and I certainly don't need anyone kissing my ass. That is when Lashley comes out. He comes out and they kind of build like, oh, there's going to be a brawl, even though MVP said there wasn't one. But as soon as Lashley starts making his way down the ramp, Drew turns and just claymores the shit out of MVP. Just lays him out. Drew then starts yelling right in Bobby Lashley's face. It was an amazing visual. Drew gets down on his hands like I don't even want to say like a gorilla-like position, but that's the only thing I can really describe that as, in like a gorilla-like position, just in the ring looking at Bobby through the ropes. He says, come on, Bobby, I dare you. Let's go. Let's fight. Lashley and MVP opt to leave. They leave, and McIntyre stands tall to end the segment. It was a really good segment. It was a good VIP lounge. I love the fact that Drew McIntyre is not a stupid babyface. He's not a stupid babyface that'll just turn his back and then, oh, Bobby Lashley's making his way down the ring and then MVP attacks him from behind. No. He takes out MVP and he prepares himself for Bobby Lashley. It's a very smart babyface thing to do. I love the way they're building McIntyre. I think McIntyre as the WWE champion is making these arena shows, these empty arena shows, a lot better because he's very good and he's in a very tough position. He's in a very tough position. That must be the hardest position, to be the top guy in the company for all intents and purposes and have no crowd reaction, have to try to generate that kind of excitement, and I think he does a good job. I really do. Anyways, that segment ends, and then we have a backstage interview with Natalya. And the weird thing is, she didn't even talk about her match. All that happens is, she starts the interview, she gets a phone call, and for some reason, she tells the interview, oh, I'm sorry, I have to take this. And it's her husband, Tyson Kidd, TJ, and it's a very tense phone call, it would seem, about her destroying Kevin Owens' set. Because all Natty says pretty much is, look, I know. I told him I was sorry. I apologized. It was a goodwill gesture. Like, I destroyed his set and I said I'm sorry. Like, they did not talk about the match. They talked about TJ's apparent disdain with Natalya destroying Kevin Owens' set. So she returns to the interview, and the interviewer tells her, oh, I'm sorry, we're out of time. Like, you just wasted your time, pretty much. And Natalya just looks very sad. And, like, this made no sense, okay? This was dumb. Like, just objectively speaking, this was very, very, very dumb. It was dumb. It made no sense. It did not need to be there. It did not need to happen the way it did, but it did. But after that, we got something really good. And that was Kevin Owens versus Angel Garza. Now, they told a story here. So, Kevin Owens is making his entrance, and Angel Garza comes out, and to get an advantage on Kevin Owens that he feels he needs, he comes and he clips Kevin Owens' left knee. He comes and he clips it from behind, and then we cut to commercial. When we get back from commercial, Kevin Owens is standing in one corner of the ring, supporting himself, using the ring post. And the referee is asking him if he can continue, and he's screaming, he's like, yeah, I'm gonna go, ring the bell, ring the bell. And the whole match, Garza just focused on the knee. He just focused on that knee, did everything he could. Kevin Owens got his licks in here and there, but every time Kevin Owens wanted to do something big, that knee wouldn't let him. And they had one false finish where I honestly couldn't believe it, because Kevin Owens hit a swanton on Angel Garza, and Garza kicked out. Now, I can only presume that this is happening because Jeff Hardy's finisher is the swanton, so Kevin Owens cannot have the swanton as a finisher. That is my belief. What really surprised me, though, was that Garza picks up Owens, hits him with the wing clipper, and he wins the match. Not completely clean because he attacked Owens beforehand, but he won the match, and he won it by pinning Owens. It was a good match, too. Like, it was really a good match. It was quick. It had good timing. It didn't run for too long, but it wasn't extremely short so that Kevin Owens looked like a chump. Like, there were multiple times where Kevin Owens looked like he could have gotten the victory, but because of his knee, it was a good story. They told a good story. They put on a good match. Then we moved into a segment that I'm honestly torn about. And I've been torn about these segments for the past few weeks. And that is the Street Profits, Viking Raiders, anything you can do, I can do better segments. This week, they were playing golf. And I don't know, okay? It starts with Eric. They're on this professional golf course, first off. Eric comes and he just launches the club like a spear. And then he tries to hit the ball with the club, tries to tee it off. When he fails, he just picks up the ball and chucks it. He just throws it. Then the Street Profits start teeing off, and they're doing very good. They're getting good scores. They're on par, under par, birdieing, all these things. Ivar then tries, and he just starts bashing the ground with the club, just destroying the ground with a golf club. He hits another player with the ball when he does hit the ball, once he tees off. And then he just tries to flee in a golf cart. The golf cart's wheel just bursts underneath him. And so they get kicked off of the course by the owner of the course. Because apparently there were some rules like, hey, you got to be quiet. You can't be in the way of other players. You can't disturb other players. So they get kicked off the course. They go play mini golf now because they have been kicked off the course. The Profits do just as well here. They're still winning. And they're doing trick shots, all these things. They're winning at every hole. Now, at the end of the game, the score is revealed to be 144 for the Viking Raiders and 28 for the Street Profits. And as we know, the lower score in golf wins. The Viking Raiders apparently didn't know that because they begin to celebrate due to having the high score. And they even get very disgruntled when it is explained to them like, no, the rules of golf dictate that the lower score wins. So Ivar decides, you know what, we lost, whatever, I'm keeping the game ball. So he goes to the golf hole to pick up the golf ball to keep as a memento, I guess. But instead of pulling out the ball, he pulls out a wallet, a red Solo Cup, which he gives to Montez Ford, and a turkey leg that he brought with him in a cooler to the professional golf course. And then Ivar, because there was one of the holes at the mini golf course had some alligators. One of these alligators begins eyeing his turkey leg, and so he tries to fight the alligator. Now I'm torn because some of these segments crack me up. Like the basketball one, I really didn't like it, but then when they threw the twist ending that the Viking Raiders were actually very good at basketball, it cracked me up. It really cracked me up. I'm sorry about that. My dogs are barking. I have a bunch of little dogs, to get off topic, and they bark at everything. So if you hear them barking, I am very sorry. Now, Ivar tries to fight an alligator because the alligator was eyeing his turkey leg. And that made me laugh. That made me chuckle because I love alligators. It's just a dumb idea. But like these segments as a whole, okay, here's my real problem with these segments. I'm going to get real critical right now. The Street Profits are the Raw Tag Team Champions, and the Viking Raiders are supposed to be the number one contenders. And instead of building up the tag team division, we are using them as comedy acts and just doing comedy, and they're being stupid. And they're not, like, they took two teams that were legitimately competitive in NXT and made them big old goofs and just made them doofuses, honestly. And like, it's not that I don't like the comedy, because both teams pull it off very well. I just don't like the fact that this is what the champions and the number one contenders are doing. Like, if we want those championships to feel like championships, they need to be treated like championships, and the champions need to be treated like champions. So I'm torn, because while I am enjoying the individual segments, overall, I do have this big problem with them. Maybe that's just me. Maybe I'm the only one who's being negative Nancy here. But like, really, I wish the Raw Tag Team Champions and the number one contenders were being treated as such. Like, I really do. Anyways, we follow that with MVP, Lana, and Lashley. Another backstage segment between the three. Lana brings some ice for MVP and says, "Oh my god, I'm so sorry that you got kicked by Drew McIntyre." Blah, blah, blah. They get into a spat. Lana and MVP begin butting heads. And Lashley leaves with MVP because MVP says, "Hey, we got to keep our head in the game. We got to focus on the WWE Champion, Drew McIntyre." And Lashley just gives a real dirty look to Lana, and then he leaves. And Lana just screams. That's literally all she does in reaction, is just she screams. And, like, I really could have done without that. I get it, it's her character. She's supposed to be crazy and overbearing, but, like, I really could have done without the scream. I really, really could have. But, you know, I like this pairing between Lashley and MVP. I think they work well together. If you've ever seen their work in TNA, you know they work well together, and I think they will here in WWE as well. Then we move on to the next match, and this match was probably the best match of the night. It was Austin Theory tag teaming with Buddy Murphy to take on Humberto Carrillo and Aleister Black. Great match. Very fast-paced, very hard-hitting. Like, just with the names I listed, you can tell it's a great match. Now, Aleister Black and Buddy Murphy, they have this amazing chemistry together. They go together in wrestling like white on rice. They are really good. Every time they go in a ring together, they're going to kill the show. They're going to kill it. They are going to kill it. When you add Humberto Carrillo and Austin Theory to that, it's just even better. Because we've already seen that Aleister Black works very good when he is tag teaming with these high flyers, these lucha libre style guys. He's really good. He's really good at working with that and incorporating his style in a way that works. They were able to build to some hot tags because there was a crowd present. It was really good. So the match ends when Austin Theory hits the ATL on Humberto and he gets the pinfall victory. Murphy and Theory then attack Aleister Black and Humberto Carrillo at the end of the match, and they hold Carrillo hostage at the steel steps at the behest of Rollins. And what I mean when I say they hold them hostage is the way they pushed Rey Mysterio's eye into the steps they were threatening to do to Carrillo if Aleister Black didn't back off and let Rollins say his piece. So Rollins cuts a promo, and the gist of the promo was, hey, y'all need to back off. Because if you do not back off, everything I did to Rey Mysterio will be in vain. And I really love this because Seth Rollins came off as a legitimate bad guy here. Like, Aleister Black went and he grabbed a chair. And he's in the ring. He was about to go attack Seth Rollins. And Rollins just stops him and says, whoa, stop right there, or this kid's losing an eye. Those were his exact words. Stop right there, or the kid loses an eye. It came off very drug dealer-esque. Very like, oh my god, please don't break this poor kid's eye. Like, you felt very bad for Carrillo. Rollins was just a douchebag. Like, and Rollins is a great heel. Let's not make any qualms about that, okay? Rollins is a talented heel. He works way better as a heel than a babyface. Roman Reigns is a great babyface. You know, I used to be very critical of Roman Reigns. Like, back in 2016, I hated Roman Reigns. In 2020, Roman Reigns has improved a lot. And he has figured out his character a lot. So, I think he's done really well as a babyface. And I don't think turning Roman Reigns heel will be the answer to anything. Just like I don't think turning Seth Rollins babyface will be the answer to anything. Rollins is so good as a heel. He just has this energy about him that, like, you want to hate him. So, overall, I think that segment was really good. It was definitely the best match of the night. By far the best match. I really enjoyed it. You know, Humberto Carrillo, Aleister Black, Austin Theory, and Buddy Murphy, they are four of the most talented dudes in ring in WWE, bar none. Nobody can deny that. You can try up, down, sideways, today, tomorrow, yesterday, doesn't matter. You can try all you want, and it won't be true. It won't be true no matter how you try to cut it, to say that they are bad in ring. They're great in ring. They know how to put on a great match. So I really enjoyed that segment. Then it followed with another segment that I really enjoyed, which was Edge cutting this really good backstage promo. First off, Edge is one of the greatest talkers ever, and he's certainly one of the greatest talkers right now. Even in an empty arena, he can make my skin crawl, and like the hairs on my arms and the back of my neck stand up on end because he's so compelling when he talks. Like, everything he says, I believe him. So he begins to talk about how he's doubting his ability because he's been retired for over 3,000 days. And in that time that he was retired, Randy Orton competed in over 1,000 matches. And he admits to Randy, he's like, you got me fired up, and in that moment, you got me out of my own head, and you made me accept the challenge on your terms. But thank you. Oddly enough, thank you, Randy. He thanks Randy for that. And then he references his appearance on the Last Ride documentary. And this didn't feel like just cheap product placement. This felt like a real thing because he talks and he's like, at that time when I recorded that, I was retired. And here I am talking about how Undertaker can figure out how to retire. And all he says is, dead man, I get it. And that was so compelling. That got me. Like, that really got me to buy into everything he was saying. Then he goes on to say that he has gone toe-to-toe with people like Undertaker, Shawn Michaels, Rey Mysterio, Eddie Guerrero, and more. He just lists a bunch of great names. And he says he brought them up to his level. He says that he is a 5-tool workhorse, and everyone that he worked with, he elevated. But then he says he doesn't know if he can do that anymore. After all the time he's been away, after everything, he doesn't know if he still has that in him. So he says at Backlash he will, and I quote, dig to the depths of my soul and see what this old man can do. It was a great, great promo. Edge is such a good talker. I love Edge. Edge is my favorite wrestler. Like, as a kid, Edge, Jeff Hardy, like, these were two of the wrestlers that were pivotal for me. I loved Edge as a character. I thought that he was just... I always view Edge and Jeff Hardy as two sides of the same coin. You know, because I grew up... And that's another thing I wanted to discuss here, is that Edge is playing the babyface. When I was growing up, Edge was a heel. Edge was a complete heel. He was the rated R superstar. He was the guy that stole John Cena's championship using Money in the Bank. He was the guy that had an affair with Matt Hardy's girlfriend and then had a live sex celebration on TV with her. He was the best heel of my childhood. He's the guy that I remember so many heinous acts that he committed as a heel. And so when they first introduced Edge back, when he first made his return at the Royal Rumble, I was wondering, are they going to babyface this guy? We have to. He's a legend. There's no way people are going to boo Edge. And it made me worry, can he actually be a babyface? He was a babyface kind of with Christian, but they still did a bunch of heel stuff. They were heels. They were just really well liked because of the funny stuff they did. They weren't baby faces like the Hardy Boys were baby faces. So I really wondered, can he pull that off by himself? And he has. He's pulled it off just as well as he pulled off being a heel. Just as much as I used to hate Edge as a child, I'm now rooting for Edge. Just as much. I want to see him do well. And yeah, part of that is that he came back from a career-ending injury and no one thought this possible. Part of it is also he's just sold me on it. I believe every word he says. It was a great segment. Edge, everything Edge touches turns to gold right now. I'm so glad that Edge is back. Anyway, let's continue. So, then there's a backstage segment with MVP and Bobby Lashley and the Street Profits, Montez Ford and Angelo Dawkins. So, they have this back and forth. At one point, the Street Profits kind of insult MVP by saying, hey, look at your face. You should have taken that ice, not that lice. You should have taken that ice from Lana. And then MVP just challenges them to a match. And in this moment, I realized, so first we're going to do a comedy skit with them, and now we're going to job them out at the end of the show. Okay. I was worried, I get it. We got to build up MVP and Lashley as this cohesive unit. But man, do we really got to use the Street Profits to do that? There's no other two guys you could put together for that. Whatever. So then we move into the triple threat for the number one contendership for the Raw Women's Championship. The participants in this match were Natalya, Charlotte Flair, and Nia Jax, and Asuka, the champion, was on commentary. In my opinion, this should have been the main event, just because what I referenced earlier in the show, that I believe the most important matches should always go on either first or last. I really think this should have been the main event because of the magnitude of what we're trying to get over. We're trying to get over a contendership for a championship. That's important. If you want your championships to feel like they matter, you have to treat them like they're the most important things in the company. Asuka is amazing on commentary, though, and it doesn't matter where the match is positioned on the card. Now, granted, this match positioning was awful. It was honestly at, the worst position you could be on the card. Because, by this point, energy is kind of dwindling. It's just, it should have been the main event to make it feel more grandiose. Now, there's a lot of good back and forths in this match. There really was. Charlotte Flair and Natalya in this match reminded me, holy crap, these two women are veterans and they can really go in the ring, especially Natalya. Natalya never gets the credit she is due for how good she actually is in that ring. When she gets between those ropes, she is one of the most fundamentally sound women on the entire roster, and I don't think anyone can deny that, and if they try to, they're being dumb. They're outright being dumb. Natalya is so talented. And then when she has someone like Charlotte Flair who can match her skill level, they had a lot of good sequences here. It was a good match. It really was. Wasn't the best match of the night, but it was definitely really, really good. And Nia Jax just does what Nia Jax does. She comes, she steamrolls people, she beats everybody up, real brutal. And there was one spot with Nia Jax that I really enjoyed where Natalya and Charlotte double powerbombed her through the announce table, and man, it was one of the best announce table bumps I've ever seen. It looked really brutal. They did a very good job at that. But anyways, Nia gets the victory after hitting a leg drop on Charlotte Flair, who had Natalya in the figure 4, and then she picks up Natalya, Samoan drop, and she will go on to face Asuka at Backlash for the Raw Women's Championship. It was a good match. It really was. The women all kind of got their licks in. There were at times, like, I really at one point thought they got me with one of the false finishes where I'm like, is Natalya about to win this match? Is Natalya really about to win this match? It was good. It was good. The false finishes were believable. Everything about the match was solid. I really have very, very little criticism of the match. After this match, we have a segment with Drew McIntyre. He's leaving the building. He's walking out. And Charlie Caruso comes up to him and is like, hey, Drew, what are you doing? And Drew is like, well, I'm about to dip. I'm leaving. But then Charlie Caruso says, oh, did you hear about Lashley's match with the Street Profits tonight? And then Drew says that he forgot something in the locker room, and I quote, won't find it until Lashley's match is over. So pretty much, Drew McIntyre is going to beat up Bobby Lashley later. He gave it away. That segment really, okay, we could have done without it just because it would have made the brawl later on in the night less expected and thus better, had that segment not been there. After that segment, we got a segment featuring R-Truth and Rob Gronkowski. They're pretty much just cutting promos. R-Truth saying that he's going to get back his 24/7 championship. Very funny lines, because R-Truth is hilarious. And then Rob Gronkowski kind of just plays off the R-Truth thing. He says a bunch of dumb stuff, but instead of saying he's going to get the title, he says, hey, I'm going to keep my title. Very simple. Nothing really to criticize or be mad about there. Nothing too compelling either. Then they announced that Ric Flair is going to be on Raw. And at first, I was shook, okay? I was shook. I was like, Ric Flair is 70 years old. We're in the middle of a pandemic. No, we cannot have Ric Flair on the show. Luckily, he was not physically present. He was just on the show via video. So, he begins to talk about Edge versus Randy Orton. And he goes on to say, like, hey, I'm Ric Flair. I'm the kiss-stealing, wheeling-dealing, jet-flying, limousine-riding, all of these things. Pretty much just reminding people, like, who he is. And then he says, ever since I hung up the boots, ever since I retired from this business, the greatest performer since me is Randy Orton. And Randy Orton is going to beat Edge at Backlash. That is his prediction. And like, fine, I'm cool. Like, look, a lot of people want to say, never give a live mic to Ric Flair. Never involve Ric Flair. Ric Flair's a draw. It doesn't matter what he's saying. He's Ric Flair. No one's ever going to complain about Ric Flair being on a show. And if he's just going to come to give the sponsorship, to give his praise to Randy Orton, then that's fine with me. That just elevates Randy Orton. That's fine with me. I think it's okay. I thought it was a good segment. I thought it was a good way to promote this match because Ric Flair is just good at being Ric Flair. And Ric Flair adds a little touch of something to everything. You know what I'm saying? He's Ric Flair. He's one of the greatest of all time. Some people call him the greatest of all time. So, I enjoyed the segment. I thought it was cool. I liked it. Then we have a Liv Morgan backstage promo. And I'm not going to rail into Liv too hard here, because the promo itself wasn't terrible. She's just going on again about how she's finding herself and how wrestling has allowed her to do that. But as soon as she started talking, in my head, and I'm being entirely honest with you, I'm being completely sincere. In my head, I said to myself, they're about to make a pun on Liv living her best life. I said it. And then literally, she says that exact pun verbatim. She's like, and now I'm living my best life. And like, I just facepalmed. I facepalmed so hard. I was like, damn it, WWE. Like, I knew it was coming. I was ready. And, like, it's still just, like, I was like, God damn it. Like, damn it. The promo was good, though. Like, Liv Morgan, she's improving. Okay? And I think she's a lot more underrated than people want to admit. She's really good in ring. She's put on great matches with Ruby Riott. She's put on great matches with Charlotte. Maybe not, like, super great, but at the very least, they're very good. At the very least, they are very, very good matches. So, you know, I can't fault her for one promo where they give her a dumb pun. And she goes out and she says the pun. You know, she's just doing her job. I'm behind Liv, okay? I'm behind Liv Morgan. I understand their desire to push her because I do think she is very underrated. I really do. If she can get this character perfectly aligned and under wraps, I think she's going to be a big player in the women's division. I really do. So, then we move into the final match of the night, the main event segment. It is the Street Profits versus Bobby Lashley and MVP in a tag team match. In my opinion, this should not have been the main event. I don't think we should have done this match. Reason being is that we pretty much jobbed out the tag team champions in a tag team match. If you were going to do this match as the main event, just don't make it, because, okay, the reason they did it as the main event is because they wanted to close the show with the Drew McIntyre, Bobby Lashley brawl that occurred after the match. And it was great. Honestly, like, maybe it's recency bias, but it was one of the best brawl segments I've seen in a while. Like, maybe it's because we haven't been getting a lot of brawl segments recently, so it feels kind of fresh. But, like, it was one of the best brawl segments I've seen in a while. But the match itself was highly disappointing, and here's why. One, we're jobbing out the tag team champions on the same episode that they were in a comedy skit, which I can't fully get behind, and we're jobbing them out in a tag team match. What I would have done, the one change I would have made that would have made this astronomically better is make it a singles match with Bobby Lashley and Montez Ford, or Bobby Lashley and Angelo Dawkins. We did not need this to be a tag team match, because now we are jobbing out two supposed tag team specialists who are our tag team champions. How are they ever going to feel like champions? How can I believe that you are the leaders of the tag team division when you can't even win a tag team match against two guys who on WWE have never tag teamed before? I can't, like... And technically, they didn't get jobbed out, but they got jobbed out. And what I mean is this. They won the match. The Street Profits won. But they won because Bobby Lashley put Montez Ford in a full Nelson and he refused to release it at the 5-second count because he was the illegal man. So, like, yeah, Bobby Lashley and MVP lost the match by a technicality, but the Street Profits looked like chumps. And that's why I say they got jobbed out. But this was to set up, pretty much, this was just a transitionary match so that McIntyre could come out, attack Bobby Lashley, and then they brawl to end the show. The NXT guys are trying to break them up. They're throwing around NXT guys, hitting NXT guys with Glasgow kisses, spine busters, all this good stuff that these big men do. And the show goes off the air with a really good brawl segment. The brawl segment was awesome. I'm not going to complain at all about that. That was great, and it was a great way to end the show. But with one little modification, this match, and either way, we totally could have done this in a different way. We totally could have saved the VIP lounge for a segment after the main event match. We totally could have done that and made the triple threat the main event, and then had Drew McIntyre come out and brawl with Bobby Lashley. There was a different, more successful way we could have done this. But instead, we jobbed out our tag team champions in a tag team match on the same episode where they had a comedy skit. That being said, I still enjoyed Raw. I know I've criticized a few things, but I feel like more things were good than were bad. If I'm going to be entirely honest about this episode, I thought it was good. I think that we're building to a lot of great programs. I'm actually very excited about what Seth Rollins is going to be doing in the future now that Austin Theory is with him. I love Kevin Owens. Kevin Owens is just funny. He's relatable. He just fits his character so well. He's awesome. KO is doing awesome right now. And I'm extremely excited about Drew McIntyre facing Bobby Lashley for the title. Or Bobby Lashley facing Drew McIntyre for the title, better said, at Backlash. I'm excited for that. I feel like WWE always gets it wrong with Bobby Lashley, and I don't understand how. He is so talented. He's shown in TNA that he can work his ass off as a heel. He's good in ring. Like, you would think that he is everything Vince McMahon would want in a pro wrestler to just push to the moon. But for some reason, they always drop the ball. So, I don't want him to win the match. I feel like that would really undermine Drew. And I feel like Drew needs to keep this title for a very long time, at least until fans are back, because Drew is the perfect guy to put it on. He's charismatic enough to where he can fulfill this role even in an empty arena. But I am excited that Bobby Lashley is getting a shot finally at the main event scene to prove like, hey, I am a main eventer. And if we can keep pushing Bobby Lashley like this with MVP, I think that they will work very well together. In TNA, they proved that they will. So, overall, this show was good. This was a good episode of Raw. Like, there were definitely some things to criticize about it, but there were more things to praise about it, in my opinion. I think it was a good episode. I'm ready for next week's episode. The one thing I will say, though, is that I do think being 3 hours is a very big struggle, especially in an empty arena show era. Now, yes, they brought in the NXT crowd to make some noise, create some atmosphere, but it just doesn't feel the same, and I think we can all admit that. I think we can all admit that it is not the perfect scenario. The perfect scenario would be to have fans, but, safety comes first, and I think they're doing the right thing by holding off having fans. I don't think they should rush into doing shows with fans for the safety of everybody, but I am still excited about a lot of what they're doing. Especially considering the times we're in, especially considering the uphill battle that they are having to fight. Because it is an uphill battle for pro wrestling right now. And I think they're doing good with what they have. I really do think WWE is doing very well with what they have, and they have been since WrestleMania. They've been working very hard, and I think they're doing a good job. They always have a little bit of leeway with me right now, because everything is very crazy, and they probably had a bunch of different plans that they had to completely rearrange to fit into the mold of the world we're living in. So, I'm not going to shit on Raw too much, just because, one, it's a hard time for everybody, and two, I think they're actually doing a good job. Like, I really do think they're doing a good job at delivering what they can with what we have. So, I liked Raw. I really did. And I think that's all I really have to say about the matter. It was a really good show. It wasn't like a perfect show. Like, on a scale of 1 to 10, I'd rate it a healthy 7. It was a 7. It definitely wasn't a 10. But this one was a 7. It was a 7. A healthy 7. More segments were on the show that I enjoyed than segments I did not enjoy. And getting through the episode was not a struggle. So, kudos to you, WWE. You did a fairly good job, in my opinion. Well, guys, that is the end of Between the Bumps. Thank you for tuning in. This is Between the Bumps, Professional Wrestling Podcast, the podcast where we go between the bumps in the ring to discuss match quality, storylines, wrestling news, and even make predictions in the world of professional wrestling and sports entertainment. I'm your host, Christian Marrero. Tune in on Thursday for the AEW Dynamite review show. Stay safe, and thank you for tuning in. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Thank you, guys. I'll catch you later.